Welcome, everyone. It is the top of the hour, and we are now more than 60 hours into what can only be described as hell on earth for tens of thousands of people in Los Angeles tonight. This is usually a show about true crime, and I have to confess that I was really hoping by tonight the fires would be out and we would be back to regularly scheduled programming, but we are not. Here we are, 60 hours in, and the unprecedented wildfire in Los Angeles is still spreading badly, and now it has become the worst in Los Angeles history. But not only are the two worst fires not contained, they continue to be driven by winds that were today clocked at almost 60 miles an hour in some places, and 60 miles an hour was considered a lull. Now I have terrible news to report. There is a brand new fire tonight. It is a bad one. It's called the Kenneth Fire, and it's forcing mandatory evacuations in the San Fernando Valley. It is a familiar place to some people because Calabasas is there, home to multi-million-dollar mansions and the home to the rich and famous, like the Kardashian family. At last report, that fire was almost 1,000 acres. And wait for this. It is up from 50 acres just 2 hours ago. Let me repeat, 50 to 1,000 acres in a mere 2 hours. And like 3 other big fires being actively fought out of 6 total fires, the Kenneth Fire is 0% contained. But unlike the other fires that we have been talking about for 60 hours, the Kenneth Fire is being called arson, and a suspect is apparently in custody. Our Brian Enton spoke exclusively with the LAPD and will have the details on that arson in just a moment. But the 2 biggest fires, the Palisades near the coast and the Eaton Fire in the foothills, those are now being blamed for torching well over 10,000 buildings. It used to be 1,000 last night. Tonight it is 10,000 buildings. More than 30,000 acres have been torched. And if 30,000 just sounds like a number to you, let me put it to you this way. The Palisades fire alone is bigger than the island of Manhattan. And all of the fires combined in Los Angeles are the same size as the city of San Francisco. At least 7 people are known dead tonight in those fires, but all of these numbers are almost certain to rise, and probably by a lot. Almost 200,000 people are now out of their homes, and it's not too soon to estimate the economic cost of this disaster. The figure, $50 billion, was being tossed around today based in part on home and property values that are among the highest in the country, if not the world. Losses in tourism were being factored in as well. But before long, that $50,000 estimate, it tripled. It tripled to $150 billion in damage, and we are still counting tonight. This is also not cheap to fight these fires. And today, President Biden announced that Washington is going to cover 100% of the cost of the wildfire response for the next 6 months. That includes firefighter salaries and all measures to protect life and property.
Today, I'm announcing that the federal government will cover 100% of the cost for 180 days. This is going to pay for things like debris and hazard material removal, temporary shelters, first responders' salaries, and all necessary measures to protect life and property. And folks, I want to underscore, I told the governor and local officials, spare no expense.
The emotional toll of this disaster is another thing entirely. Thousands of homeowners and business owners are watching things like this. Everything they own just incinerating and collapsing before their eyes. And right now, money is the last thing that first responders are thinking about. They are literally working until they drop. I mean it. In some cases, literally dropping on their fire hoses.
We're pretty much trying to keep what is left here standing, and so we're not laying down. We're staying in our positions. That's correct. I did sleep on top of the hose bed last night, just staying ready to do what we can still do. I'm very sorry for the residents that live here. We did try our best, but we got our butts kicked. we're getting some rest now, and we're all trying to get our nutrition up and our health up so we can stay active.
Sir, you need not apologize at all. The reinforcements are coming from Nevada and Oregon and Arizona and Washington State. And get this, 800 prisoners from the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation have voluntarily signed up to help fight these fires. 1,000 National Guard troops are now mobilizing to help with firefighting, but also to help with things like traffic control. In previous nights, we saw utter gridlock as people in the fire's path tried to escape their homes. The Guard troops will also help to protect infrastructure. And now I do have to mention a crime story. And despite what I said before, I really wish I didn't have to do this. Authorities say 20 people have been arrested this week for looting. Looting. In this crisis, looting. LA's new district attorney says each and every one of them will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. And he said as much while standing outside the charred remains of his own sister's home in the Palisades.
So I'm here in Pacific Palisades at the site of what used to be my sister's home. She's lived here for a while, a long time, with her family, and now this home, along with the homes in the street in this neighborhood, are just gone. I've been here for over 60 years. I've not seen devastation like this in my lifetime. I mean, you have to harken back to the 1990s when we were hit with the floods and the fires and the earthquakes and the riots to even get close to this. Now, I'm absolutely convinced that LA is incredibly resilient, and like it's done many, many times before, Angelenos will come back and build this back better than ever. But for the people who are thinking, the criminals who are out there thinking about taking advantage of this situation through looting or through scams or over the internet and preying on vulnerable victims, let me make it quite clear what's going to happen. The DA's office, working with law enforcement, is going to arrest you, they're going to prosecute you, and you will be punished to the full extent of the law. That's a promise.
And District Attorney Nathan Hochman joins me live now. Sir, thank you for taking time out of your schedule. First things first, is your family okay? I'm not sure if I can't hear Nathan Hochman or if the audience can't hear Nathan Hochman. Okay, I've got you now. Yes. Sorry, I'm going to repeat the question. Is your family okay? That's the most important question.
Yes, we have fully evacuated from the fire zones. And as you saw, unfortunately, my sister's home that she lived in with her husband and raised her 4 boys for the last 15 years is rubble at this point, is completely burned down. And not just her home. If you go and take a look up and down her blocks in her entire neighborhood, it looks like a bomb hit. I mean, it is a scene right out of an apocalypse. It's something that I didn't think I was ever going to see in Los Angeles. And it's not just isolated to her neighborhood, but in the surrounding neighborhoods of Pacific Palisades, out in Pasadena and Altadena, there are similar scenes. I mean, these are scenes from all over Los Angeles County, as this fire is the largest natural disaster fire that has ever hit LA County in history.
D.A. Hochman, it seems there's only one degree of separation at this point for people who have someone they know or someone they recognize or someone they feel they know, if they're actors or celebrities or famous, who's been affected by this, who's lost a home. And here you and I are talking about your sister. The tape that you filmed out in front of her home saying that you would bring down the hammer on these looters. I want to know how hard that hammer comes down. What would happen to them? What will happen to them if they're found guilty?
So if they are found guilty, we are going to bring every charge that we can bring that's applicable to their crimes, whether it's looting, grand theft, burglary, robbery. You know, sadly, you're going to see as people start to apply for insurance and government benefits, and there are people lurking out there who are going to try and rip them off through scams. We're going to go after those people as well. And they'll be looking at going to jail. They'll be looking at going to prison. They'll be looking to pay back anything they stole. They'll be looking at community service. There isn't a type of punishment we won't consider for them because basically I view these crimes as despicable, when people take advantage of people in their lowest moments and sort of the worst tragedy that has affected their lives, and people want to come in and profit from it, they'll be dealt with as harshly as we possibly can.
I can't imagine anyone watching this isn't fully behind you when you say that. It is despicable. They are truly the bottom of the barrel criminals that prey on people in such a tragedy. And we see it all the time. We see it in hurricanes and severe weather problems. It's awful. I do want to ask you, I know it's early. I don't even know that you have this on your desk yet. It's just breaking that the Los Angeles Fire Department told our Brian Enton that the fire in the Calabasas area, the Kenneth fire, is arson and that there's a suspect in custody. We don't have the details yet. Brian Enton's about to get them to us. And I don't know if you know, and I don't even know if it's your jurisdiction, because I know that, that's Ventura County and LA County, but maybe just speak in wide terms for us. What would happen to a suspect found guilty of arson of this magnitude?
So we are going to look at all the causes of each one of the fires to determine whether or not it was natural or man-made and intentional. And if it was arson, again, the crime of arson will land you in prison for years, especially if you have any level of a criminal background. I mean, it could literally land you in prison for years. The restitution alone that you will owe will probably cripple you financially for the rest of your life. So we are going to send that message unmistakably clear to anyone that's out there, even now, because we hear that people look at these situations and, again, for some sick reason, want to go ahead and add to the fires that Los Angeles County is fighting. If they are even thinking of that, we want them to understand what the consequences of their actions will be. That justice will be swift, it will be firm, and the maximum punishment will be sought.
D.A. Hochman, we're getting a revised death count. It's 7 people now, and I think we can fairly say it is likely that number will climb given the magnitude of the fires. If there is an arsonist who is convicted of setting these fires and it results in death, now we're talking about an entirely different kind of penalty.
That's absolutely right. And those penalties can easily be various types of homicide types of charges that's added on to arson. Or certainly, if they don't pass, they're people who don't pass away, but they're injured, great bodily injury enhancements can be applied to arson as well. And again, our goal is to send this warning for people who haven't done these crimes, whether it's looting, whether it's these internet scams, whether it's robbery, whether it's any future arsons, that the day and age of a DA's office standing on the sidelines or sitting on his hands is over. I've got 750 incredibly capable and talented deputy district attorneys who want to bring justice to anybody that harms people in Los Angeles County, and they will.
And there's the price gougers, too. I just have a couple seconds left. People who come in afterwards and start offering bottles of water for $6, $10. What can be done about that?
There's a whole variety of statutes dealing with that, from civil prosecutions to criminal prosecutions. Again, I will be working with city attorneys' offices across LA County with law enforcement to go after the price gougers as well.
On a personal level, Nathan, our entire team, we just send our prayers to your family and to your sister. Again, I'm just so sorry that you're going through this. But again, it is now 1 degree of separation for so many people who are experiencing this tragedy. Thank you for talking to us tonight.
Well, thank you very much. And my message to people, particularly in Los Angeles County, is stay safe.
Agreed. Thanks so much. And we'll get updates on those looters and the penalties that they're going to face in the coming days, weeks, and months. In the meantime, coming up next, you have seen what these fires can do to houses. Have you seen what they can do to cars? Melting the chrome into puddles, rims reduced to virtual strings. Just take a look at that. That's melted chrome. This is all that's left of a car that crossed paths with the Palisades fire. And LA County is dotted with thousands of scenes just like this. Watch them point to the tires. As they zoom in, just string. We're going to take you live inside the destruction zone for an up-close look next.
Things to show you around here. This, believe it or not, was a car. It's hard to imagine, but yeah, that was a car. And take a look at what happened here. There's chrome, or there was, on the bumper, and that chrome melted. You can see how it melted here. This was it must have got to some incredible temperature. And then over here, look what fire does to tires. You can actually see the tire treads there. That's what fire does to tires. Let's take a walk across the street. Another very large home over here that is destroyed. And again, pile of rubble. And you can see a little bit about the life that the people had here. If you look through the back of this property, you can see they had an outdoor patio back there, maybe next to a pool with a nice barbecue. They'd sit outside. They had heaters out there. That life is gone.
We've seen these fires burn houses before, but when we see block by block of businesses being destroyed, that is really new and really hits hard, and it really gives you an idea of how devastating this fire was. We're seeing convenience stores, a boutique, a hair salon, a barber shop, a pharmacy. We're hearing these are all locally owned businesses, so you can only imagine how heartbreaking it is for them. Many of these folks also live in Altadena.
That was a 1 minute, 36-second snapshot of hellscapes, plural, that have been left behind by the Palisades fire west of LA near the Pacific coast, and the Eaton fire on the opposite side of LA near the city of Altadena. Those are by far the largest and most destructive of the 6 active wildfires in Los Angeles County, consuming almost 30,000 acres and untold thousands of buildings, and also claiming 7 people's lives. This is what's left of the house that belonged to 66-year-old Victor Shaw near the Eaton fire. It had been in Shaw's family for more than half a century. Shaw lived there with his sister, who heeded the orders to get out. But her brother Victor chose to stay behind and defend his home with a garden hose. Neighbors who returned to the property yesterday found Victor in the yard. He was dead and still clutching the garden hose.
When I went back in and yelled out his name, he didn't reply back, and I had to get out because the embers were so big and flying like a firestorm that I had to save myself. And I looked behind me, and the house was starting to go up in flames, and I had to leave.
We actually did see him laying on the side of the road with the hose. It looks like he was trying to save the home that his parents had had for almost 55 years.
I fell to the ground, and I didn't want to look at him. They just told me that he was lying on the ground, and he looked serene, as if he was at peace.
I want to bring in our Brian Enton, who is in Calabasas, and our Nancy Liu, who is standing by live in Palisades. Brian, first to you with the breaking news. You spoke with the LA Fire Department, who told you that the fire in Calabasas, the Kenneth fire that is just exploding in size tonight, is apparently arson, and that they have a suspect. Tell me more details.
Yeah, it is exploding. First of all, it was like 10 acres several hours ago when it started. Now it's up to almost 900 acres. And people evacuated this area. They've now been told they can come back in. They've been working so hard, the firefighters. But in terms of this arson investigation, we were out here, Ashley, and there were so many Los Angeles Police Department detectives out here, and it just didn't make a lot of sense. They were coming in and out. So we went and we talked to the LAPD, and they confirmed to us that they do believe that this fire, the Kenneth fire, was intentionally set. Listen to what the lead officer here told us.
What we know right now is that the incident started here, and about 30 minutes later, a suspect was detained over in Woodland Hills area by citizens.
So someone purposely set the Kenneth fire?
At this time, that's what we believe, yes.
Do you know how or why they did that?
That I don't know.
Is this a crime scene right now?
Yes.
So everything's closed off?
It's being investigated as a crime.
So I can just tell you, since we broke this news, Ashleigh, people in this area are furious, as you can imagine, and learning that it was actually citizens who apparently took this guy down. We don't know the other details. We know, though, that someone is in custody again, that this is officially a crime scene behind me, which is what LAPD are telling me. And you've got people out here wondering, so they've officially said they believe the Kenneth fire was arson. What about all of these other fires that we've seen over the last 3 or 4 days that destroyed thousands and thousands and thousands of homes? Obviously, too soon to make any kind of connections. But it's certainly raising a lot of eyebrows that we've now got this confirmation from LAPD that they believe this fire was arson.
So distressing, Brian. I just need to ask, I don't think we have the answer yet, but do we know anything about the suspect? It is a he, I'm assuming, who he is, why he did it, where he's from, is he local, anything at all?
No, we know nothing, and I tried to get more out of that lead officer out here, and he wasn't sharing it, just saying that it was all under investigation. In fact, they've actually pushed us back. We were able to get beyond these gates a little while ago, maybe an hour ago, and they've now got us all the way out here. So we don't know much about the suspect, but again, interesting that it was citizens, it was regular people who apparently saw something and detained him until police could take him into custody.
I just didn't think we were going to be talking about a crime scene tonight. Disaster area, yes, but crime scene, no. I'm just so distressed, along with the residents there, I can imagine. Brian, stand by for one moment. Nancy Liu in Calabasas, you've just been doing some extraordinary reporting as well for the last 60 hours. Can you update me now to the Calabasas situation, or to the Palisades situation?
Yeah. In Palisades, the cause of this fire, still not known, but people around here certainly wondering too. The devastation from this is immense behind me. Just some of it, you see a door frame there. Here is another door, and it just makes me think, these are doors now to devastation. It is just blocks and blocks of devastation. And Ashleigh, we now have some numbers on the destruction. Just the Palisades and the other fire, the fire in Altadena, over 10,000 homes and structures, 5,300 here in Pacific Palisades alone. And you mentioned the death toll of 7 people. We can also update you that this fire is now 6% contained. I got to speak with a firefighter earlier, LA firefighter. He had been on the job for 2 days straight. Fresh crews are coming in from all over the country, and that has helped because containment is now up to 6%. And Ashleigh, we are now under a curfew. Here in Pacific Palisades, it is eerily dark. It is only our lights out here in this neighborhood. We are seeing regular police patrols, and you've heard about how looting is a problem. There have already been 20 arrests. And as you heard from DA Nathan Hochman earlier, they're not messing around. They will prosecute these people. Ashleigh.
I want to just read something quickly. There was an errant county-wide emergency alert for an evacuation warning apparently sent to millions of cell phones just before 4 p.m. I believe that's local time. A supervisor there confirmed that it was a technical error intended only for the residents near the Kenneth fire. A correction was issued 20 minutes later. Hopefully that got to people in time before they, collected their prized belongings and left. I want to show, if I can, something that, despite everything, it does make you feel better when you see these remarkable airships coming in and dropping their water or fire retardant on their targets. It's almost like a bright spot in such a sad story. But watch this helicopter as it zeroes in on its target and unleashes, and look at the effect the effect that has. I say that because Nancy just reported that the Palisades fire is now 6% contained. It's the first time we've heard of anything over 0% contained for the Palisades. And containment basically means some kind of a 6-foot barrier that is entirely around the fire, meaning there is 6 feet worth of either burned out, zero vegetation or water, or something that will block the fire from spreading. So obviously you can imagine how hard containment is, but it's great to see them hit their targets like that. Guys, I want you to stay if you can, stay in position. I want to come to you for more reporting as we go throughout this hour, and I thank you both for bringing all of that breaking news to us. We still have a heart-rending flip side to tell you of the desperate rush to safety when fire closes in, and that flip side is the return during the daylight hours when the immediate danger has passed and uncertainty gives way to relief if your home is still standing, and utter grief and despair if it isn't. After the break, I'll be joined by someone who just endured that journey, racing from and then returning back to his family home of almost 40 years. What did he find in the aftermath of the inferno? That's next. If you thought it would be over by now, think again. Tonight, at least 5 active wildfires are still on the move around Los Angeles, and the winds, sadly to report, are picking up speed again. 4 of the fires are barely contained, if at all, and more than 180,000 people have been ordered to flee their homes, with another 200,000 people standing by with an evacuation warning. My next guest's experience is sure to be repeated over and over, maybe 180,000 times. Brian McMahon's family home was in Altadena, site of the huge and voracious Eaton fire. They got out when they needed to, thank God, but returned to a scorched and empty lot where their home used to be. Here is part of the video that Brian shot.
This is Sunset Drive, just west of Lake Avenue, Altadena, California. This is what's left of my mother's house. That's their mailbox there. And yes, the mailbox, the mail delivery from Tuesday did survive, amazingly enough. But here we go. This is looking up the driveway. We're looking north towards the San Gabriel Mountains and up towards, I'll pan over this way in a second. Looking off to the east now. That direction would be Mount Wilson. You can't see it from here. But you can see everything is pretty much just devastated around us. Not much left standing. So it's pretty much all you got. So, but a redwood tree, if you look up at the top, it's still green. It survived. Anyway, that's what we got here from Altadena, California.
And as you can see from the video, it wasn't just the McMahon's home. Their entire neighborhood was wiped out. And Brian McMahon is now with me live. Brian, I'm so sorry. That's your family home, still your mom's home as well. Most importantly, how's your mom? 81, is she okay?
She's doing okay. We were able to get her up to the house today. It was a bit to do to get up there. I had to get through 5 sheriff barricades to get through there. But I'm a retired deputy sheriff, so the ID did help me get in there.
So I was a little astounded when you pointed out your mailbox still standing with the mail from Tuesday still intact, while seeing, what looks like Dresden around you. Did you see little pockets of salvation as you went through this destruction?
As we went up there on Wednesday, my son and I went up there first. There was no rhyme or reason to it. There would be homes standing perfectly fine, and then there would just be blocks of just sheer devastation, basically what you see in my video there. Very surreal, very hard to stomach, for lack of a better term, because this is where I grew up.
You're one family among thousands who are in this predicament. What are you going to do? I mean, first and foremost, who's looking after your mom? Where's she going to live? What will she do next? What are the next steps?
Well, for now, she's down in the Long Beach area. How long she's going to stay down there, we don't quite know yet. We even kind of jokingly, they talked about putting a motorhome up on that side driveway there you see in the video, and living out of the motorhome until the house gets restored. But that's just, that's a long range plan. If they rebuild, we don't know. If they don't rebuild, we don't know at this point.
Well, and that's the question. And maybe it is too early, given that you're still taking in the reality of this video just shot. Do you think that there is potential to rebuild? And do you think the neighbors feel the same way?
I wouldn't know about the neighbors. My stepdad has been speaking with them. He would probably know better than me. But being that my mom loves being up there, I would say the chances are more likely that they would rebuild than not.
You yourself live in Culver City. I got one of my best friends from high school lives in Culver City as well, and I checked in with her. She said yesterday everything was fine, but as we know, everything can change hour to hour. How is everything where you live?
We're not too far from the Palisades fire, but luckily the prevailing winds were blowing everything to the west mostly. I never really felt like we were in danger here, but you still kind of watch it out of the corner of your eye to make sure things don't shift and blow this way. Because look what happened here in Altadena. These are neighborhoods that in wildfires past never burned. The fire came close, but never burned. But you never know. All it takes is a good Santa Ana windstorm and a spark and a good source of fuel, and a whole neighborhood can be gone.
I'm so sorry. I feel like a broken record, Brian. I'm telling everybody who's on my program that I am so sorry. It's true, repetitive or not. It's true. I don't know what it's like to be in your shoes. I walk around my house every day wondering what I would take, and I can't imagine what your mom went through. And I'm so sorry for your loss, Brian.
Well, thank you very much. Yeah, they didn't take much either. They thought they'd be gone for a day or two and be right back, and everything would go on as normal. But it wasn't that wasn't the case this time.
It wasn't the case. I think the only bright spot is that you have your mom and your stepdad. They're alive, and that's not the same story
Absolutely.
For everybody in this community. So our prayers to you and our thanks for helping to shed light on what the effect of this hellscape really is. Brian McMahon, thanks so much.
Thank you for having me.
Coming up in just a moment, I said to Nathan Hochman at the beginning of this program, the district attorney, this is one degree of separation. We all feel like we know someone or we're connected to someone. And if you don't know someone personally, maybe you know Paris Hilton or Jeff Bridges or Anthony Hopkins or Maria Shriver. And these are all people who are going through what we just heard. They're the same story as Brian McMahon's mom. They all lost their homes as well. And one of my friends out there, Harvey Levin, who founded TMZ, he grew up in Los Angeles, and he has his finger on the pulse of what this is really doing to this community. I'm going to have a conversation with him in just a moment. Back after this. If you ever thought for a moment that if you have fame and money, it can do everything for you, these pictures should tell you otherwise, because there are a lot of homes down there with very rich people and very famous people and people not so rich and not so famous. Fire is the great equalizer, and right now it is equalizing hundreds of thousands of people who have fled their homes and at least 10,000 people who have lost their structures, whether it's business or homes. To the celebrities, they at least give you a face that might otherwise be a disaster that affected someone else. Because frankly, don't we all feel that way? This kind of thing always happens to someone else, not me. Well, when disaster strikes your neighborhood, if there is a familiar face, it does bring you closer. And sometimes those celebrities are the familiar faces. One man who has covered Los Angeles, not just the celebrity side, the other side, the legal side of Los Angeles for his whole career, is Harvey Levin. He founded TMZ, which stands for 30 Mile Zone, which is Los Angeles, the 30 Mile Zone. He grew up in Los Angeles. He's cut his teeth in his journalism career in Los Angeles. He founded his businesses in Los Angeles, and he knows so many of the people in Los Angeles and what these fires are currently doing to Los Angeles and what they are going to do to Los Angeles. Here's my conversation with him.
I want to tell you a story. That there is a guy that in Altadena, and he has a small house there, and he ran up to a photog and a reporter, and was begging and just said, I'm begging the fire department to come here. And he gave his address and he said the whole neighborhood had burned down. He thought his house was gone. He drove up. Everything was gone except his house and the house next door. The house next door was about to catch fire. And he said there was no water pressure to fight the fire and to protect his home. And he was begging the fire department. He said his wife went to the store to buy bottled water and they were going to throw water on the fire, knowing that it probably wasn't going to do any good. And he was just begging the fire department. And he said there's a list the fire department has of the places they needed to go. And he was way down on the list. And when you listen to him and you hear that desperation and just begging, help, help. And at the end of the interview, this is not going to be a happy ending. At the end of the interview, the house next door just burst into flames.
Did he lose his home, Harvey?
We don't know. We don't know.
I've heard a lot of people say today, this isn't a fair fight. Everyone's begging for fire help, and there are only so many fire responders. They're flooding in from neighboring states and neighboring counties, but there's just only so much they can do, especially with dry reservoirs, especially with dry, fire hydrants that we've been hearing about and zero water pressure that we've been hearing about. It's like bringing a knife fight into a war zone. So all of those people, you can empathize with them begging for help, but at the same time, there's just not enough manpower.
Yeah, and there are other problems because people just don't know, what to do in a situation like this. There are a lot of people who just turn their sprinklers on, thinking that might save their house. That doesn't work. But what happens when you do that, and a lot of people did, is it depletes water pressure and water, so that when all of those sprinklers are going, the water pressure goes down and the fire department has a harder time fighting it. So this has just been such an issue, where people have driven and all of a sudden flames come and they abandon their cars and it blocks the road, which blocks the fire trucks. There are so many obstacles in fighting this fire. And again, it's not a fire that's just burning and sitting. It is a fire that is spreading by the minute because of the winds. So, everything has gone wrong in this case.
Your reporters and your cameramen are always out, doing TMZ work and getting, breaking news. But this must be all hands on deck for your entire team to be out and getting the fire stories in their community.
Yeah, I mean, it's all hands on deck everywhere. And, I got to say, I was born in Los Angeles. I've lived here most of my life. And, it is such, as you said at the beginning, a spread out place that there isn't a real sense of community ever in this city in day-to-day life. The only time there's a sense of community is when you have a disaster like this, an earthquake or a massive flood or fires. And all of a sudden you feel something different and a connection to people that you didn't feel the connection to day to day when there was nothing like this going on. People who live on the west side of LA aren't that interested in what's going on in Pasadena, but now everybody's interested in what's going on with everybody. And it's not even a saving grace, but it's just interesting to me that it's the time and the only time really when there is that real sense of community in Los Angeles.
Yeah, and I think, nationwide, I think it's fair to say nationwide, politics aside, I don't care whether you're a red state or blue state, when hurricanes hit in the southeast and when this kind of a fire hits in the west, America bleeds for our fellow Americans, and we all bleed the same color. And I just feel it in my heart, too, as I do the coverage. This is just such utter devastation. I keep saying anywhere, look, redcross.org, great place to start. Just give money because they're the best at this game. They're the best at getting money to where it's needed because these people are just going to need so much. I also wanted to mention, Harvey, in that same vein,
actually, and it's as simple as, a lot of people have been, thousands of people have been evacuated. And the hotels now are filled. And people are looking for, their houses are gone. They have no clothes other than what's on their backs. and they're looking, where am I going to sleep tonight? And, you know, if you have friends, that's great. But the hotels are completely filled now. And, you know, it's this, you just feel like everything is overrun at this point. And especially the people who have lost everything, it's mind-blowing.
I'll also reiterate, because I was a board member of the Red Cross for many years, don't start out unloading clothing and toys and things to the Red Cross. It's a harder job to sort through and process that stuff in warehouses. Send money, because they're lightning fast at getting exactly what's needed into exactly the right hands with zero overhead half the time. So it's really good to give money to the Red Cross. These people are all going to need literally shirts and pants and shoes. My great thanks to Harvey Levin. And after the break, the long list of very, very familiar faces who are in the same boat as the thousands and thousands of others who've lost their homes. That's next. Just some of the roughly 30,000 acres that are burning currently in Los Angeles, and the newest fire, the Kenneth Fire, apparently caused by arson, according to the LA Fire Department to NewsNation. I want to tell you that amongst those flames, there are some very familiar people who've lost their homes. Here's just the start of the list. Billy Crystal, Paris Hilton, Tina Knowles, Jeff Bridges, Candy Spelling, Sir Anthony Hopkins, Maria Shriver, Cameron Matheson, Adam Brody, Mel Gibson, Heidi Montag and Spencer Pratt, Maria Shriver, Ricky Lake, Miles Teller, Anna Faris, John Goodman, and again, this is just the start. There are many that we don't know. Not because of the list of the famous, but also because of the not famous. The Red Cross is the place to go to help people. Honestly, there are so many who are going to need our help. You can go to newsnationnow.com/Red Cross, or you can just go to redcross.org. Please do so. 90% of your donations go to those affected, because 90% of the Red Cross is volunteer. I know, because I was one of them. Please help if you can. Cuomo's next.
Chris Cuomo here. Welcome to News Nation. We are putting our arms around the people facing ongoing catastrophe in Southern California, but we also have to start putting our heads to why this happened and has gotten so bad so fast. And in doing that, we're going to have to deal with a political firestorm that has broken out despite the catastrophe that all should be concerned about. So let's start with the emergency. The basic headline is, it's still getting worse overall. The